Hey guys, so as you can see, this is the summer garden, the summer raised bed garden, and it's starting to come to an end. This is the end of the summer garden, but soon we'll be planting things for the fall and even things that will survive into the winter. But today I want to talk about something that I really love. I've been eating it for many years, and I can just eat it with a plate of sushi and not even think about it. Before I know it, it's all gone. So anyways, join me in the greenhouse and we'll discuss my favorite plant to go along with sushi, or my favorite spice to go along with sushi, I guess you could say, ginger. Hey guys, so today we are talking about ginger, and I'm going to be talking about specifically the variety that's most commonly eaten with sushi. And this is a ginger rhizome. A lot of people refer to it as a ginger root, but it's actually a rhizome. And you can plant these, and you, in a very short amount of time, you'll have quite a bit of ginger that's this large and much larger as well. So I have two varieties here to show you. There's a few tricks to planting ginger and conditions that ginger really likes and that will not survive, that they really hate. So we'll talk about that today, and I'll show you how I plant my ginger and what I do to keep it healthy and producing as long as possible. The first thing I will tell you, and the most important thing that you have to know about growing ginger, is most of the ginger you find at most grocers are not going to work. And the reason is they're treated so they won't sprout in the store, because sometimes gingers will sit on the shelf for quite a long time in the produce section. So it's treated with a growth inhibitor. And in some cases, I'm not sure about this, but I know that a lot of vegetables that come across borders into the United States, they're treated with radiation, so which means they wouldn't grow, they wouldn't sprout. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe most ginger is treated with a growth inhibitor. So you would never see this right here. I'll try to get a little bit closer view. You'll never see any of the eyes sprouting out shoots. They'll just sit in the water, and you'll never have any positive results. Some people say you can wash it off, but I've tried that with no success, and the ginger actually just sat there and never actually sent out any sprouts, even though it had some of the eyes looked like they were just ready to send out shoots. They just never happened. So I would recommend getting this from a organic grocer in an organic section that's never been treated with anything, or buying it at a farmer's market, someone who is growing it directly in the ground and then selling it at a farmer's market. So that's very important to remember. If you fail to remember this one thing, you'll have no success growing ginger. So this is a example. I'll try to hold it a little bit closer to the camera so you can see it. You can see the eyes develop these shoots, and this one looks like it has 1, 2, maybe 3, 4. And so they're ready to be planted. And this one has, it looks like 2. Again, it's ready to be planted. It's ready to go. It's been in water. Gave it some time for this to heal over. And this one has 1. So we got 3 pieces here. One thing to remember is some people will just say, take it. Once you see something, shoots coming out, break it into pieces. I disagree, because I've had some problems with that. There's a big chance of rot and them dying. So you can see this is kind of calloused over, and so it's healed. But if you, once the shoots come out, you start breaking it, you're going to probably have rot, and you'll probably lose that ginger you worked so hard to get it to root. So just remember, allow time for this to heal over, and it should do fine once you get it into the soil. So those 3 are ready to go in soil, and we will proceed from here. Okay, so another thing to remember is ginger does not grow in a clump. It's the rhizome spread, and so you need a very wide planter. A planter that's like this right here. This is not appropriate for ginger, because ginger wants to spread its rhizomes. If you've ever seen bamboo growing, it will just send out shoots, and it's a rhizome, and it pops up in different places in the garden. So again, same with ginger. You want to have something where it can be planted in the centers. It can spread out and send up new shoots. I'm in zone 7, so my winters are too cold for ginger to survive. It would probably die back to the ground, and since there may be freezing even below the ground level, the ginger itself may completely die. So I want to plant it in something that I can bring into the greenhouse, and I don't have to worry about losing the ginger that I've worked so hard to get it to sprout and grow. Another thing to remember about ginger is it only takes about 4 to 5 inches of depth. It's not a deep growing plant. So you don't need these massive planters that are impossible to pick up. I could even with this thing half filled with soil. It's very easy to pick up. Most people could pick it up, transport it to an unheated basement or somewhere that they could overwinter it and wouldn't have to worry about losing their ginger. So again, you only need about 4 to 5 inches of soil and you'll be fine. So it's not going to grow deep. And speaking about bringing it inside into an unfinished or unheated basement or even an heated area, you can do either one of those or leave it in a greenhouse if you got it. But remember, cannot survive below 32 degrees and probably wouldn't be advisable if it gets below 40 degrees at nighttime. But even if you bring it inside, you're going to need, like this planter, I have 2 of them. So I'm going to flip another planter over just like it on top. So once it comes inside in the winter, you're going to have a lot of humidity. I can easily check it, and that will keep the humidity very high because ginger loves humidity. So make sure that you have some type of dome, plastic dome on it to keep the humidity in and keep the humidity very high. It is from a tropical region and it does like humidity. So that's another thing to remember. So in getting this ready, I'm going to have to put some holes in the bottom, and I can use the drip tray. The cap from this particular one, I can use it as a drip tray and put it underneath, and that way the moisture, I'm going to have to put holes in the bottom of this so the moisture that goes through, this actually will have its own drip tray. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by using this device right here, and I've showed this in a previous video. It's the easiest way I've found to put holes in plastic. Sometimes a drill, when you put a lot of pressure on these plastics, they can be brittle and they'll break. So for me, this works best. It's Black Cube. It's a soldering pin. This tip gets extremely hot and it will go through this plastic relatively easy once it heats up. I'm not sure it has heated up. So you just want to give it a few seconds to heat up, and that way you can put your holes in there. See, it just goes right through, melts right through. And I'm going to put some right around the edges so it can drain properly. And this is just the way I found the easiest way. It's so fast, you don't have to worry about a drill. It just works super fast. Okay, so there we have 9 holes, very small ones. Cut this back off, make sure it cools down. Okay, so now we have our drainage holes. Another thing to remember about ginger is it does not like to be in soggy soil. So you don't want the soil to be saturated and wet. You want it moist, but the ginger does not like standing in water. So remember, make sure you put drainage holes on there. And even if it's sitting on a humidity tray, you don't want the entire thing sitting in water. It's okay if there's a little bit of water in the humidity tray, but just make sure that there's not a large amount of water at the base on the inside. Okay, so the potting medium needs to be very rich but well draining. So I'm going to have 3 components, and I'll just get that now. I'm going to use standard potting soil. And like I said, this does not have to be very deep. Now, what I want to mix with this is some black cow composted manure. Put that over the top. I would say it's about 2 parts potting soil and maybe 1 part of the black cow. We're just going to mix that together. We'll have a very rich soil. It should drain just fine. And I've never understood why anybody would want to plant ginger. If you have to transport it, you would have to put it in a large container, which would make it very difficult. I'm going to pack that down a little bit. Very difficult to transport. So I like putting it in something that is right for the ginger, but it's also not too heavy to move in and out, because this could be in here for 1 or possibly 2 seasons before we go to a larger container. So I would say that's important, is just to remember whatever you think you can lift, still relatively light and not hard to get up. So we're going to go to the next step and get our ginger planted in this soil. Okay, so the preferred soil pH for ginger to grow in and be its happiest is going to be between 5 and 6. And so some potting soils, it's going to be too high and you want it to be more acidic. And you can use different type of soil pH testers to tell you what the actual pH is before you put the ginger in, and you can decide what you want to do there. If you want to lower the pH to make it more conducive for the ginger to grow in. This is peat moss, and it will do that. And so I'm just going to give a light dusting of peat moss to make sure our pH is at the right place. This will lower the pH. Not tremendously, but it'll just help it, and I think the ginger itself will be happier growing in this. Okay. The next step is we're going to plant the ginger, and so we're going to start with our largest piece in the center. It doesn't have to be deep because we want these shoots to be close to the top so they can come out with minimal effort. So we're just planting it just below the surface. We're going to cover it. Sprouts are not that deep, so we shouldn't have any problem there. Second piece of ginger, again, the sprouts, you can see them right there. And that is just below the surface. And the third piece we have, and this could outgrow depending on how much more. This is August the 17th. So we're probably about 2 months from our first frost. And so it will come into the greenhouse in less than 2 months. So this is ready, and it will probably need to be transplanted next year into a larger container. But as far as this year, we're at the end of summer, and so I don't think it's going to outgrow this pot right now. Okay, so just to give it a little bit of a head start, I'm going to put in some slow release fertilizer on the top so it can slowly release nutrients into the soil. And I'm just going to put it kind of sparingly. And there's one other type of fertilizer I like to use on anything where I'm trying to speed up root growth, and so I'll show you that. So you've probably heard me talk about this before, but this is Schultz Bloom Plus, and it has a very high phosphorus content. Let's see if you can, I'm going to show it to you, but it's 10-54-10. That middle number is phosphorus, which is for root production. So that will help the ginger speed up its rooting into this potting medium. And so I think it's half a teaspoon per gallon. So I've got that pre-mixed. I'm going to take this outside after I do one last thing in preparation of watering. The last thing I do for the ginger is to make sure that the moisture is retained and it doesn't evaporate. We're going to start it in a semi-shady spot, but it will eventually be moved to the sun before summer's over, when the sun is not so intense, maybe in September. But I'm going to top this with shredded pine bark, and it is a finely shredded pine bark. At the big box store, it's referred to as soil conditioner, but I use it a lot on bonsai, and it's just a great way to keep moisture in the soil, and it's just a top dressing. So I'm going to put that there all the way around the sides, and those sprouts should break through fairly quickly. So we're going to take it out, and I'll mention a few more things about ginger before I go outside and thoroughly water. So you're going to want to fertilize this about every 4 to 5 weeks during the growing season. I should have started on this earlier in the year, but it's been a really busy summer in the garden, along with other things that life always seems to hit you with. So anyways, every 4 to 5 weeks, you're going to want to fertilize this. You'll want to check moisture of the moisture content of the soil. If you have a moisture meter like I showed you, that's also a great thing to have, because you can just prod it into the soil and find out the moisture content. But you can usually tell just by putting your finger down there, and if it feels dry, you'll know. But just that moisture meter just adds you an extra layer of knowing whether or not you need to add more water. So I'm just going to give this a light watering, and I'm fanatical about these Orbit sprayers. I just really found these, I think it was last year, and they are built and made to such high quality metal. There's metal and very high density plastic. So as of now, this filming, I'm not being sponsored by it, but I just really like these. You can also adjust the back of it. Probably hot water coming out there, so I don't want to hit that, but very easy to adjust. So we're going to water this and make sure it's got plenty of water. Make sure I get all the hot water out of this from today. Yep. And so I'm just going to get a good soaking. Okay, so you want to check this every 3 to 5 days until your sprouts come out. You don't want to let the soil dry out, but at the same time, you don't want it to be soggy. So just make sure you don't overwater and just check it. And eventually, in just a short amount of time, you're going to see new shoots coming out and you will be on your way to growing some ginger. We're going to do something a little different with the ginger that's already sprouted still in the greenhouse. So stay with me and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. So now that we have our rooted rhizomes in a safe place, we're going to take the one that's sprouted and growing pretty well. We're going to put that in this pot, and this is not its permanent location, but I just want it there to be able to enjoy it on the back porch area for a couple months and just kind of monitor how it's doing. The rhizomes outside are safely in deep shade, and so they'll eventually be moved into part shade, and possibly in September, mid-September, they'll be in full sun where our daytime temperatures are not so scorching as they are now. So we're going to get started on planting this and bringing it to its new home out on the back porch. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get what's left of our potting soil, and we're going to add that to this container. We're going to get our black cow composted manure and do the same thing. We just want to make sure we have the right amount. I'm not going to be able to mix it while it's in the pot. I think we could use a little bit more. So I'm going to need a container to mix it with. Okay, and this should be an easier way to mix it than to try to mix it inside the pot. And also we have to remember to add the peat moss for added acidity and bring the pH down just a little bit because the soil may be too alkaline. So we're just going to mix this a little bit. All right, I think we need a little bit more potting soil. And I think it's time to either make more potting soil or just do it the easy way and go to the big box store and get a large bag of it. So that is probably going to be the right amount of potting soil. So we're going to add that to our pot. And this is, I've already said this, but this is far too deep for ginger. It doesn't have to be this deep, but this is basically just for aesthetic reasons. And so we're just going to keep adding that there. Try not to make too big of a mess. All right. I'm going to press that down before we put the ginger into the pot. Okay, and let's just dig a small hole for our ginger, and you can see there's actually your main shoot, and it looks like you have two, possibly three. There's 3 shoots ready to come out. It's like a side shoot maybe coming out as well. So just don't be rough when you transplant. Try to be extra careful because the roots can be kind of finicky. I'm gonna put that there. I'm gonna try not to cover the roots too deeply. Just make sure the soil's firm enough for it to have something to hold on to. And we're gonna go with our peat moss to add acidity and bring the pH down just a little bit. Okay. So this will grow very rapidly. We have about 2 months left before it has to come inside. So I'm going to add some of this. Probably too much, but just want to make sure this takes off. And it might make a great house plant. So do that. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to top dress it with the shredded pine bark to hold in moisture. Not too deep, just a light, maybe 1/4 inch layer of that. Okay. And so that could make a really nice house plant at some point. But for now, it's going to just sit on the back deck area. And so we'll be able to enjoy that kind of a tropical look next to the back door. And so it won't take long. You'll see a lot of growth, a little bit dehydrated, but it should be okay. So the last thing we'll do is we'll take it outside, water it, and transport it to the porch area. So the last thing to do is to water this in with some very high phosphorus content fertilizer. And like I said earlier, it's the Schultz Bloom Plus. And I'm sure there's other brands, but I always buy this one because I can get it super easy on Amazon. And so we've pre-mixed it. And I'm just going to lightly water it. I'm going to take what's remaining in this can and take it out and water the rhizomes that we have. And make sure they get the high phosphorus fertilizer as well. And so I've got a humidity tray underneath because sitting on the deck, it's easy to rotten your wood out if you leave a pot in the same place. I've done that before, and you'll have a speeding up of wood rot since most pressure treated lumber don't last as they used to. So anyways, this is going to get transported to the deck, and I'll give you that last moment of zen before we go. Okay guys, I'm bringing it to its final spot where it's going to stay for a while, and just let it have quite a bit of sunlight. And the spot it's in probably gets maybe 6 or 7 hours sunlight minimum each day. So the moment of zen today is thinking about sushi, and specifically the ginger that always comes with it if you go to a Japanese restaurant. And I love sushi. It's really one of my favorite things to eat. But the ginger always comes with it. It's very thinly sliced, and usually if it's fresh, it's very crunchy. But the last time I was in Tokyo several years ago, I came across a type of sushi that I absolutely refused to eat, but I got a close-up look at it for the first time. And the name of that was fugu. So if you know what fugu is, please tell me below, because I know what it is, but I'm just curious how many people in the audience know. I asked my father that one time many years ago before he passed, and he seemed to remember it, but he wasn't sure. So if you know what fugu is, please leave a comment. I would love to hear it if you've ate it. My wife has actually ate it before. So have a great day. If you would, please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and please like, and always just leave me a comment that tells me what you want to see and any advice you have. I'm learning just like everyone else. Have a great day, guys.